Hello, this is a quick video about intensive interaction. Often I forget how unwidely known intensive interaction is in Australia. And it upsets me because I think it's such an important thing to know about if you are supporting adults who don't use or understand speech, adults who are getting services because they present with some sort of challenging behaviours, some sort of behaviours of distress. So I wanted to do just a quick video on intensive interaction. Now, I haven't done a quick revise in the book, so I'm just running from my head. And sometimes it's difficult for me to discriminate what is intensive interaction and is what has just become the way that I engage with people over the last 25 years. So, intensive interaction, I won't go through the history, but it is highly recognised in the UK as a legitimate way of supporting people, communicating with people who have profound intellectual and multiple disability, severe intellectual disability, and a lot of autistic folk who might be labelled under the profound autism category. The key thing, so intensive interaction draws from an understanding of what typically happens in parent-infant interaction. What is it that is usually going on in these interactions before there is speech? And so using that understanding, it's using strategies such as, attuning to the person. So it starts with really observing the person, and this means watching what is the person doing when they're by themselves. What are the sounds or the words that are coming out of their mouth? What are they doing with their fingers? What are they doing with their breathing? What are they doing with their mouth? Looking at what is that person truly attuned to? Where is their concentration at? And the point of where their concentration at becomes the focal point of engagement, because that's what's meaningful to that person at the time. That's where their attention is. So rather than coming in with a strategy that is immediately trying to pull the attention of somebody from where they're attending to where you think is important to attend, it's about going to where their attention is. And in going to where their attention is, you might do things like repeating exactly what they're doing. You might repeat what they're doing, but use a different mode. So if somebody is off my head, if they're going, you could go back to them, or you could even do that same sort of shh sort of feeling. It's recasting the rhythm of what's being done. And we know for a lot of people, seeing, hearing, experiencing somebody doing what they are doing actually neurologically captures their attention better than seeing somebody doing something that they have no capacity for doing. One of my favourite phrases, you can't have reciprocity, so you can't have two people joining in something unless two people could actually do that something. So it's using what the person can do. And for some people, this is enormously successful at capturing their attention. And it can capture a person's attention when they're in a state of distress, when they're in a state of dysregulation, when they're in the state of happiness. So if somebody is showing when they're happy, going, and you go, that person immediately may get a sense that somebody recognises what they're doing and what I'm doing, and they're sharing it. So sometimes it's called mirroring. And we don't want to do it in a robotic way. You've actually got to mirror the feeling. You've got to tune into the feeling of what the person's feeling. What are some other strategies in intensive interaction? Burst pause. So doing something that sort of captures the person's attention in some ways. And again, quite often it's body language, it's body communication, it's sound communication that might capture a person's attention, because yada yada yada, me talking, might not. So you do something that's funky, something that's cool, something that captures a person's attention, and then you stop and you wait and you wait, and you could be waiting a minute, 10 seconds, a minute, however long, and you see what the person does in response. That's burst pause. And sometimes, you get different sort of responses. Sometimes that a person knows that you just did something because they actually stop doing anything after you do it. And it's almost like they're thinking about it. You can wonder, are they thinking about what I'm doing right now? Sometimes they might reach out, or sometimes they might do the thing again. So, and that happens a lot with raspberry conversations, where, somebody might be going, and you go, and then they sort of pause, and then they go, and you get that turn taking, that we're on the same page, we're sharing the same feeling. Routines, using playful routines. But don't get me wrong, intensive interaction is not just about having fun. Intensive interaction is about tuning in and sharing the feeling, whatever feeling that might be. So if somebody is experiencing something that's difficult, and you recast that feeling that, ooh, it's hard, it gives that person a shared feeling, but it might also call that person's mind out from their inner state to a recognition of the person around them. So I know I've left out a lot of things, but this has been a walk around the park, thinking about intensive interaction. If you're a behaviour support practitioner, if you're a speech pathologist, if you're an occupational therapist, if you're a support worker working with people who don't use and don't seem to understand speech, their language is body and sound maybe. And intensive interaction is a nice structure for thinking about how to tune into body and sound as a shared communication, as a connection. You want to know more? Definitely Google intensive interaction. There's a great UK website. And there's many, many videos of people with profound intellectual disability, people with severe intellectual disability, people who are autistic. Check out YouTube. Again, lots of videos posted from schools. Lots of great videos by Dave Hewitt talking about what they call the fundamentals of communication. And I think this idea of the fundamentals of communication is incredibly valuable if you're working in that area. Does this person alert to people around them? If they're not alerting to people around them, how can people around them modify what they're doing to make it alertable? Does the person seek out other people, show pleasure in being with other people? Fundamentals of communication is definitely worthwhile looking at. In terms of training, I know that Mark Barber still runs some training in Australia, so keep an eye on that. In the UK, the Intensive Interaction website, People's organisation, run different levels of training. And I know that Us in a Bus also runs frequent training, online training and face-to-face training. There's lots of great books I think one of my favourites is the blue book from BUILD, British Institute of Learning Disabilities, a practical guide to intensive interaction. The first books, Access to Communication. There is also research around, and although that research might be sometimes criticised because it's usually not in a controlled environment and might be a small number, which is all related to the complexity of working in this area. There is more research on intensive interaction as an effective tool for people with profound intellectual disability to communicate than there is research on a lot of the other things. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. My hand is shaking. Intensive interaction, check it out. Is it a good option for the person that you're supporting?